Good evening and welcome to the Planning Commission meeting for Saratoga Springs for Thursday, December 2. I've asked Commissioner Barton to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Barton.
Please repeat the pledge with me. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All the Planning Commission is here except for Commissioner Ryan, who is supposed to be coming, so we'll allow him to join us when he gets here. The next item on the agenda is public input. Time has been set aside for any person to express ideas, concerns, comments, questions, or issues that are not listed as a public hearing on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. This evening, all of the items are public hearings except for the approval of the 2023 regular meeting schedule. So if you have other comments you'd like to make that's not on the agenda, this is the time. I will go ahead and close public comment at this time, and we'll move to the item number 4, public hearing, amendment to the City Land Code Title 19.9, off-street parking. Applicants Joanna Graham, Kimley Horn and Associates, and this is presented by Kent Page. Is the applicant here this evening? Kent.
Yes, Joanne Graham is here.
Would she like to come up and join us?
So, Commission, this is an application to amend our minimum required parking for a commercial kennel. It's found in Chapter 19.9.10. As you can see, the request is to change it, the minimum requirement from 4 stalls per 1,000 square feet building size to 2 stalls per 1,000 square foot building size. Staff did some research on comparison parking requirements with other cities in Utah, and particularly for commercial kennels in a Google search, and also the parking requirements where there's an existing pet suites commercial kennel. I found or compared parking requirements for 21 Utah cities and 7 specific cities that have a minimum parking for commercial kennels, at least in the Google search. And then I looked at the parking requirements for 8 cities that have a pet suites. A lot of cities use the use of daycare as comparable to a commercial kennel because they find that the time that customers are at the site is comparable to what customers would be at for a daycare or a child care facility. Parking requirements can vary widely due to different definitions of uses, different codes, and some cities just deal with commercial kennels regarding nuisances, if it be for noise or odor or lighting. Generally, Utah cities are closer to the current code for Saratoga Springs, and generally cities that have pets suites are closer to the requested amendment than our current code. And I'd be glad to address any questions you might have at this time.
Thank you, Kent. This is a public hearing, so go ahead and open this up for the public for any comments that they have. I'll go ahead and close this and then ask the applicant, could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, Joanna Graham, and I'm with Kimley Horn.
Would you like to add anything to the presentation?
Yeah, so I will just say Kent did a great job researching, and like he mentioned, the use of a pet suite is closely related to like a daycare use. Most people who are using this facility are coming to the facility, they're there for a maximum of 5 minutes as they drop or pick up their dog. So it's heavy morning hours and afternoon hours. And Ken also did a lot of research on different cities that have pet suites currently, as well as I know he talked to several other cities in Utah who had similar type of use of daycare facility for dogs. And they all have closer to what we're proposing. It's 2 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet. And they don't have any issues with parking. They haven't gotten complaints about parking. So this proposed text amendment really does better align with the operational uses of the Pet Suites facility.
Okay, thank you. I'll go ahead and turn this over to the commission at this time. Commissioner Burns.
First, thank you for like all of that detailed information on parking. I really appreciated reading that and seeing that. So thank you, staff. That was great. So first, where is the proposed location?
It will be at the recently approved Steel Ridge Plaza, just right over here off of the
Okay.
crossing.
Okay. So mostly, sorry, I thought I had that open. If the change is made, then, and this building does not remain a kennel, how will that impact like the future use?
We would look at what requirements a change of use would require for like minimum parking. And they would need to meet those requirements for the next use.
So, because when I looked at like the daycare and preschool parking requirements in the city code, it would be higher than what is currently, like it would require additional parking than what the kennel would need, right?
Right.
So it would really severely impact the ability of what could go into that space after the kennel, should the kennel leave, correct?
Yeah, possibly. It's always a possibility.
Okay.
But I guess as the next owner were to like say, you know, Pet Suites leaves and the next owner purchases it, that's just something they would have to design with their site plan, right? We would assume that they would be just scrapping the building and starting from scratch, so then they could allocate parking according to whatever that use is.
And then a lot of cities or jurisdictions use shared parking in their analysis.
Okay. All right. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. Commissioner Kilgore.
Is there a specific reason the city went with 4 per 1,000 square feet when designing the code originally?
I'm not aware of the rationale for that standard.
Any idea? Any reason?
I don't know specifically. I do know that we use that quite often for retail spaces and office spaces. So I don't know specifically why on this one.
Okay. And I'm guessing it's a little obvious, maybe, but why does the applicant want to go to two per 1,000 square feet? Is it just because what's the reason?
So honestly, it just aligns with the Pet Suites operations. We have, I think, over 60 locations throughout the U.S. And based off all of the operational uses throughout the U.S., that's what we found is the number that's required. In addition to that, we obviously are working with site constraints and the size of the site. So it's kind of a combination of those two things, and knowing that, you know, this size of site is typically what works for us in other jurisdictions, and we're able to get parking that works for their operational uses.
What's the burden that you anticipate if required to go to stay at 4 per 1,000 square feet?
Jonathan, do you want to speak to that?
We're not able to go to 4. If we're not able to lower the code amendment,
Well, could you come forward so we have it recorded? Thanks.
For the record.
Jonathan is with Compton Addy.
Speak in the mic so we have a good record of it. Thank you. Yeah, that's fine.
No, you just,
Don't push it, I'll put it there. Should be on.
All right, perfect. So if we weren't able to get it, just with the size constraints of the building, we would have to scrap the project completely. And just either then we'd just look for a new site around the area.
okay, so it has to do with the size of the lot, and then the number of spaces, or the number of square footage that you'd have to dedicate towards parking.
Yep.
And then it just wouldn't balance out with what you need for your facility.
It wouldn't balance out. When we're looking at sites, we try to get, if Pet Suites could get 15 parking spaces, they would. That's because that's what they feel that they really need. They always have usually around 5 staff members are there, and then you have people coming and going all day long. And most people are in there for, as Joanna said, 5 minutes at a time or less.
Okay. What other businesses are nearby that area?
It's currently vacant. It's this Steel Ridge Plaza, just off of Crossing, just a little bit east of here.
Is it regional commercial?
What's that?
The regional commercial?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because
We've had a proposed concept plan for a car wash right next to this proposed site.
any idea what their parking requirement would be? Like
we
that.
could look
Sorry, I'm just throwing that at you.
Yeah.
You were not prepared to talk.
I can tell you.
Okay.
I've got it pulled up on the city page. So for a car wash, it would be, a full-service car wash is 3 stacking stalls per bay, including stall inside bay, plus 1 parking stall per bay, plus 1 stall per person employed on highest employee shift. And then for a car wash that's a self-service, I assume it'll be a full-service car wash, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's not really for parking, I guess. It's really just to get them through the car wash. Yeah. What I think we would like to consider is not just the impact to your business, but also if there are other businesses nearby and what the impact is, because we've had problems with that in the city before. That's the reason why that's why it's not just the impact to you, but also the impact to other businesses. We've had customers really complaining about parking situations in certain areas of our city, regional commercial areas of our city.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, Kent did do the research on that and talked to several different jurisdictions that have similar facilities. And Kent can talk to his findings, but in your report, it stated that they weren't getting complaints like that.
Okay. And then do we have other commercial kennels in the city or plans for them
Not that I'm aware of.
that you're aware of? None?
No, we have, I think that Petco will be offering some boarding. The veterinary office offers some boarding, very limited boarding. And I think that's all. Maybe the grooming shop, but I didn't check if the pet grooming shop right over here by the new Vasa, I don't know if they do or not.
Okay, so if we were to make this exception, or code amendment, I guess, then it would create another class of, wouldn't it create a special class for commercial kennels to have different parking than others? And if that's the case, what would those businesses fall under?
Right, so Commissioner Burns mentioned that, how if the building needs to be something else in the future, how do they meet the parking code? Really, since we don't have other uses in the city that have just 2 per 1,000, if it changed hands in the future, it would most likely still need to be a kennel because that would be the only use that has just 2 per 1,000.
Right. And then, so if a Petco says, yeah, we're going to board, or other businesses, grooming, veterinarian, well, veterinarian's probably veterinarian, but can they be can they ask to be classified as a commercial kennel, or can we always say, no, you're not that because primarily your revenues come from, retail sales?
We can. We have a commercial kennel defined in, and we have retail sales defined, so they have to meet those definitions.
Okay, okay. So we don't have to worry about other businesses trying to classify themselves as that in order to get out of a parking requirement?
I don't see that being an issue.
Okay. Yeah.
That reminds me that some jurisdictions, they actually have a parking requirement for commercial kennels depending on the nature of the retail sales. You know, if it's just occasional, just a few versus, you know, a certain amount over a line when they would require actually more parking because of the more retail sales.
What would the applicant think of a compromise, 3 to 1,000 square feet?
I don't think we'd be able to get that.
No, I don't think we could with the
With the size of our site, we would not be able to get there. Right now, our site plan is showing 27 spaces, so we would be 3 short.
Okay, so I think that's, and also, sorry about the delay in processing the application. Usually we're supposed to hear it in 30 days, and it took longer than that, so sorry about that. But I think it was for good research. So just a comment, I'm not sure. I wonder if instead of changing the code and creating a whole different class, if we could do this through an exception process? Exception to the code, or since this is, not exception to the code. Well, so when they bring up I guess you would be wary of bringing up an application if you didn't have that already pretty much decided. Yeah, because I was wondering if, rather than creating an amendment to the code, that we handle through some kind of an exception process where.
Exceptions also need to be written into the code, so when we allow exceptions, they're written in, so that process would also be, either way would be a code amendment. So if we did it that way, it would be a code amendment, but we'd have to draft that and bring that back to you.
Okay, yeah, but
Our city attorney rang in, so I'll let him talk.
Yeah, it just doesn't qualify for a variance, if that's what you're thinking of.
variance, that's it, yeah. That's what
Uh-huh. It doesn't qualify for that because it's not kind of a inherent landscaping issue that applies specific to this site.
Okay, thank
And
you.
we do have some exceptions written into the parking code about shared parking if certain criteria, but they could share up to a maximum of 25%, and then there's a criteria, that they have to meet, and they have to submit traffic data, but even then, that's still more parking than what they're hoping for.
Okay. Yeah, my concern is if we lock it into what we were talking about with the 2, and then it would have to be a kennel in the future as well, a commercial kennel in the future, then we're just basically saying it's got to always be a commercial kennel. That is my worry. I mean, I hope you guys are going to be 50, 100 years here, but if that doesn't happen, then we kind of lock ourselves into one type of business for that one particular property. So that's one concern. Now, if they can't handle 4 and it has to be 2, what other businesses could handle 4? I'm just wondering if it's, yeah.
Let me pull up the parking code. We have a lot of use that we require 4 in our parking table, so I'll bring that up on the screen. I'm just pulling that up now.
Well, I mean, I understand we require it. Yeah, I understand we require it, but
City Hall is right here, and so this is Crossroads Boulevard. It's, is it this one? It's one of these lots in here. So,
Do we have the site plan that you guys emailed us?
here. What's that?
Do you have the site plan that you emailed us that you can bring up?
We have a conceptual site plan,
Right.
yes.
Have
Sorry.
that in the staff report, or in the,
It's not,
Thank you.
I think you emailed it on Monday.
Yeah, we sent it to each member of the planning commission. So
wait, what?
just for reference, I have the parking table here, but 4 is very common for like liquor stores or veterinary offices, animal hospitals, arts and crafts, automobile rental,
Yeah, that's right.
bakery, bookstore.
So 4 is kind of the standard, right?
Yeah, it's pretty common.
We go up to 5 for medical.
So sorry, I'm totally jumping in here too. Is this in the, oh, what is this called? The Gateway Overlay Zoning Map? Is this property in that?
In the proposed, yes, it is. For comparisons, the financial institution has also the 2 stalls per 1,000.
Ken, could you repeat your comment about?
Yeah, kennel would not be prohibited by the gate.
Would not be, okay. Well, yeah, so I understand we have other requirements for 4 per 100,000, but if their business can't handle that many and can only do 2, what other businesses would be able to? You know what I mean? It have to be, I guess, a really small building or?
Well,
You
your
know?
financial institution would be 2 stalls per 1,000.
Okay, so it would have to be probably 2 stalls per 100,000 anyway, either way.
Well, I was, what the engineer, whose name I can't remember, said about whoever took it over afterwards may have to tear down the building. I was just thinking, if I was looking at something to put a restaurant or something in there, I wouldn't want to put it into a kennel. I'd probably tear it down, 10,000 square feet.
That's kind of what I'm thinking as well, unless there is a kennel that's going to go in. I don't think that a use is going to want to adapt the building. I think it'd be a rare use that would come adapt it. So that's where I think that, you know, if you're putting in a fast food restaurant or something here, you're going to just scrap the building and put a new restaurant in. And then there will be new parking associated with that.
But the other
So
thing,
I think what Ken's asking, the same thing I'm wondering is what can go on there that would require for parking stalls? Anything, would anything fit that size-wise? Could a restaurant be small enough, right? Could a restaurant be small
Right,
enough to
that's
have
what I'm
a
asking.
stall still?
Because if it's a 2 stall, you just gave an example of one that would have 2.
But no,
2
if
per
someone had to
100,000.
have 4, who would fit there?
Yeah, so, I mean, again, you gave, what was the example that you gave? Sorry.
Financial institution.
Yeah, so if that's the case, then it's going to be 2 for 100,000 anyway. But then that would be site-specific, not necessarily creating a whole category. So another question that's coming out of nowhere. Did the parking requirement change for Vasa or for the building that Smith's occupied and now is Vasa? You know, because it's a change from retail sales to gym facilities. So do they have to restripe parking and all make?
Well, we did evaluate the existing parking. So retail, when it went in as Smith's, required 4 per 1,000, but Smith's had extra. So when Vasa came in, it required 5 per 1,000, but we calculated what was there and met that requirement.
Because there was extra already.
As there was extra already.
That's it for me. Thank you.
thank you, Commissioner Kilgore, Commissioner Barton, and then we'll go to Commissioner McConkey, and then Commissioner Burns, if you did,
Oh, sorry, no.
okay.
Most of my stuff was answered. I guess I'm just a little nervous as well because I've seen plenty of empty buildings here. And then if there's nobody that can go in because of the parking requirements, right, that does make me nervous. But I think all of it's been addressed, and I guess I don't know how we could even answer that, right? I mean, you can't really see what's going to happen in the future. Like, hopefully, again, I think this is a service that we need out here, so hopefully it's around. But yeah, if there's something that can go in there.
I will say too, I know we're concerned about not being able to fit like the 4 spaces for something else to go in there, but we have a pretty hefty building size. It's like 11,000 square feet, and that's so that the dogs have like plenty of room. So we have an 11,000 square foot building area with this entire outdoor area in addition to that building area. So we're providing, like, we have such a large footprint, which is why we're not able to meet that requirement, but that's so that we're able to provide, you know, a nice facility for the dogs. Most like fast food restaurants or gas stations or things like that are, I would say, half of that building size, which then provides a lot more area for parking. Yes. So that's where I think, you know, if someone were to scrap the site, they would be able to fit that parking in with a smaller building size that works for whatever use that is.
Is that all you
That's
have?
all. Yep, thanks.
Commissioner McConkey.
Sounds like we're all sharing a similar concern here. It was one of the concerns that I that I had written down too. Recognizing this is not, we're not approving or unapproving a site plan here. We're just simply talking about whether or not to change the ordinance and if that's justified. Excuse me. I share the same concern. Of course, building a building and then having to come later and tear it down to fit something else has a sunk cost. So once you tear the building, I mean, tearing the building down is not free. So I think that the 4 parking stalls per 1,000 is a great protection to the city to help ensure that we're setting us as residents and the aesthetics and the use of the city up for success. I'll be honest that I would feel a whole lot more comfortable, not saying that I would agree with it, but just as a brainstorming, if it was 3 stalls per 1,000, it would make me a lot less uncomfortable to make a change here. But also, along with that, looking at the email that Kent had sent us, the potential site plan there. And I'm just going to throw this thought out there. If there is enough landscape area that would be allowed to turn into parking, I don't know if that would be feasible with retaining their minimum required landscaping for a future development or a future use, if there was a change of use, then that could possibly help solve the parking issue. Does that make sense? So if they've got enough grassy area, for example, outdoor area, fence enclosure, and that can easily be turned into parking by another business to meet the requirements. However, then we're back to, we're not really discussing a specific site. We're discussing, do we want to change the ordinance? So that's one of my thoughts and concerns. I want to stray just a little bit here, and this is nothing personal, of course, at all. And but this raised a question to me: is what's and just to question bluntly, what's a kennel doing in a regional commercial area, other than if you look at PetSmart? Then, of course, if they're going to have a kennel inside the store or whatever, then would need to allow that. And one of my concerns is if we allow or allowing kennels in a regional commercial, I don't know that having an outdoor area for animals to hang out would comply with the intent of the regional commercial land use zone, which states that I'm just going to read here. The purpose of the regional commercial land use zone is to allow in appropriate areas, commercial business, shopping centers, and shopping centers of a scale that will serve the neighborhood, community-wide, and regional shopping needs. These regulations should preserve the existing quality and livability of the city while still assuring maximum efficiency of traffic circulation and convenience. A kennel allowing outdoor access to the animals, in my opinion, would not comply with the preservation of the existing quality and livability of the city. That's just my opinion. Being in a overlay area certainly raises some concern to me as well, but again, that's just me sharing my thoughts and my opinions, and outside of the real question tonight, which is, do we feel that it would be wise for us to change the parking requirements for a kennel? Yeah, it's already been said what I share the same concerns as you. The last thing is that I find it interesting how many other cities also have the same 4 per 1,000 square foot requirement. And I think outside of just the upfront, this may be too many parking spaces for a kennel in and of itself. I think at the same time, it's a great protection to, for the long-term well-being of the city to have the type of parking that would allow some flexibility on uses of the buildings. That's all.
I will say too, this whole outdoor fence area, if someone did want to move in and keep the building footprint, the whole outdoor area could be scrapped if that didn't apply to their use, which then again is area that could be transformed into parking while keeping the structure.
That's all I got, yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner McConkey. We have Commissioner Burns and then Commissioner Kilgore. Commissioner Burns.
So I'd just like to bring up that I'm also concerned that this we'll be seeing a change in the general overlay zoning map, or the gateway overlay. So, oh my word, words tonight are hard. If this were to go forward, because city council would need to vote on this as well, right? So I have a concern that we'll end up seeing that down the road. I had something else too, and do you guys not have like a parking agreement with the other businesses there? Can you not work something out on that?
We do have CCNRs that are put in place where we do have cross-access parking.
Okay. And even with that cross-access parking, you still don't qualify?
No, with the cross-access parking, we wouldn't get as many spaces to meet the 4 per 1,000.
You don't?
No, we wouldn't.
It's
Because
just,
if I remember
like,
correctly, it's like 25% of what ours is that what we'd get.
I mean, can you go back to the developer on that, on those CCNRs? Because this, I really do like the concept of this. I really do think that this would do well here. I just have seen too much long-term problems with empty buildings, and hopefully y'all are here forever, but you know how it is. So, yeah, I'd go back to them.
In response to that, what Joanna says is that our outdoor area can be turned into parking.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at your future uses, if that becomes a commercial retail store and that person just wants to knock down that whole outdoor area and turn that into parking, they would definitely be able to hit that 44 number.
Right, but we couldn't grant a variance for you because that's not in the meantime. And so changing that in city code would not be,
Well,
I wouldn't want to see this go in somewhere else that couldn't make that change down the road. That's all, sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. Commissioner Kilgore.
Yeah, as far as your location, it's, as we've already been told, that it is a permitted use in Gateway, so I don't have any problem with that. If we don't like it, we'll have to change that code. But I think it's fine. I was thinking I didn't want to really create just a special parking just for one particular type of business. But, our city's just getting bigger, and the fact that we are a crossroads type of city as well, where we don't deserve a Home Depot, but they even told us we're here, they're coming here for spillover because we have access, or because, we have parts of Eagle Mountain and West Lehigh and Bluffdale, they all come through us to get to the freeways and all this other stuff. And so we have to start acting or thinking like a bigger city. And in that case, there are some, there are more minute or more specific coding for, or codes for businesses like yours that come in. And especially since we welcome, which it's a need. We have a need for that. I have a dog, and we had to take him to a relative, 30 miles away when we're off, for a couple weekends. So businesses like that are definitely, or like yours, are definitely welcome and a need. And I'm starting to think that if we have to make a special, special code or have a code for you, then maybe we should, because we're at that level now. I mean, we're going to be pretty soon 60,000 people, in the next 15 years. If other cities that have your businesses can do a code that works for you, then why can't we? And so I'm starting to think Maybe that's what, that's the way we should be moving forward as far as our city goes. Everything else that was brought up there, they're good points, they're salient points, but it doesn't affect what you're looking, what you're here for today. So, yes, sorry.
If I could add, in some of my research, the American Planning Association has a website with quite a few articles about minimum parking requirements. And generally, there's a trend through the country saying that there's parking requirements are too robust. And we want to plan for the day after Thanksgiving, but how many parking lots do we see that are really full? You can drive by and there's a lot of empty parking places. So just for your food for thought.
I think that's a good, well, I'm glad you brought that up because I don't really know where the trend is going, but that tells us where the trend is going. I know we've had our issues in this city in the past, but maybe that was more because of, I don't know, maybe it was some compromises that were made, things like that we don't do as much anymore. We make sure that it gets into the code, and thanks to your research, it's data-driven. So based on that, I'm starting to really lean toward, just as a comment, I'm leaning towards maybe really going forward with this because I just feel like that's we don't do it all the time. There was a business here who we did turn down because we thought it was just in the wrong place, and they did find another place in their city, and so I'm glad for that. But this is something that where I think, I don't know how many commercial kennels we're going to have in the city, but maybe that's a good thing, is that maybe there aren't that many yet, and so we don't really have to worry too much about the fact that this is kind of like an exception that we're creating. Or not an exception, but a special class, based on a business. But again, I think that maybe that's not a bad thing, given that we're right in that transition where we're now gaining these great businesses coming to us. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Commissioner McConkey rang in. However, I'm going to go first, and then I'll let him go. I'm going to shock everybody because I'm normally the bulldog on parking, and I don't bend. However, for this one, I've thought a lot about this. I asked, as soon as I saw this, I sent Kent a couple of emails, and I asked him how many people are going to be working there, what's the size of the building, and I'm glad that he sent us the concept plan so we could see what it looks like, and I was pleasantly surprised to see how big it was. And I'm glad that you mentioned tonight how many people are going to be working there, so that helps to alleviate some of my fears. So the other thing I'm going to talk about is I heard this I'm not the longest serving member on the commission, but I'm pretty close. And one of the discussions we had where we went down a huge rabbit hole of what's going to happen after these guys are gone. And we were told, and I can't remember who told us this, but we need to consider the application that is in front of us and not what's going to happen 10, 15, 20. We don't know what's going to happen. I'm glad that we had the discussion about if somebody else comes in, they'll probably have to tear the building down because that's probably what will happen. So I am comfortable, believe it or not, with reducing the parking for this specific use to the 2 per 1,000. I was thinking maybe pushing for like a compromise to go 3 or something, but I'm now, after this discussion, I'm comfortable with that. And that's basically I know we're going to have a bigger conversation about parking the city-wise. One of the challenges for me is, the rest of the world's reducing parking, but one of the things we lack here and probably won't have for 20 or 30 years is going to be public transportation. I mean, we have 2 freaking bus stops now. The chances of us getting another 2 in the next 10 years is slim to none. Maybe we'll get the fancy bus, like the UVX kind of thing, but who knows when that'll happen. So we need a plan for parking now, and then if we have too much, then we can put Senator Anderegg's high-density housing in the middle of Walmart's parking lot in 30 years, but that'll be after me. Because I'll fight that one. Anyway, all right, so I'm going to go to Commissioner McConkey and then Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner McConkey.
So one of the thoughts I had as an alternative to try to accommodate is recognizing certainly probably not going to have a flood of 41 people all parking right here and visiting, boarding. That would be like a run on the bank or something, However, I think something that I would feel comfortable with, might be a little bit of a compromise strategy, would be, let's say that we did change the ordinance to allowing 2 per 1,000 square feet. Along with that, if possibly adding a stipulation in there also in the ordinance that they also provide, the potential, without having to remove the building, of providing a minimum of 3 per 1,000 square feet. So that for example, in this case, I don't know if this would be the case here, but if they had enough landscaping to add a few more or enough more to get that, then to me, I feel like we're looking to the future, but also accommodating the present. Does that make sense?
Was that all you had?
That's all I had.
Commissioner Ryan?
Appreciate that. Just want to apologize to the commission and also to the applicant for being a little bit late. So I had a 4.5-hour flight and thought about a really good remark to this, and then Commissioner Kilgore stole it all. So I just want to mention that I agree with his latest line of thinking. I don't see the floodgates opening by doing or considering this. At the same time, I appreciated what the chair said, is it's really hard to gaze into a crystal ball and for us to predict the future like we don't, you can't. And that's not fair to the applicant that's before us today. So I agree with where Commissioner Kilgore was headed with his comments, and then I appreciated your comments, Mr. Chair, as well. And I wish I wouldn't have spent all that time on the airplane thinking about it all. So thank you for your consideration, and tend to agree. I don't see this opening the floodgates, but I see it also meeting the need in our city and doing it in a reasonable way. So I appreciate the discussion tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner Kilgore?
So to address Commissioner McConkey's idea, it was the reason why I asked if the applicant could handle or could do instead 3 per 100,000, and your reply was that you couldn't. It would be no different than 4 per 100,000. And although the code applies to all applicants and not just you, you are the applicant for this particular one. And if it doesn't do you any good, then there's no point. And also, yeah, I mean, we could talk about landscaping, but then that would also, I think, require an exception for landscaping, because if, for example, the applicant is doing what they can with landscaping and it's still at 2 per 100,000, then to say that you should be able to show 3 per 100,000, then they would have to then compromise their landscaping, which is also, part of code as well. And so it just seems like there's too many compromises. I think we just basically consider what's in front of us, and based on all the discussions we've had, and then just vote for what you think is good for the city and the applicant, rather than try to come up with compromises.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. I think we're ready. We'll go ahead and entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion. Based upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move to recommend to approve proposed amendment to Title 19 with the findings and conditions in the staff report dated November 23rd, 2020.
We have a motion from Commissioner Barton. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a second from Commissioner Ryan. Do we have a question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
So we have, I think it's 5 yays and 1 nay, correct? Okay. Would you like a chance to explain, Commissioner McConkey, why you voted?
I'm just not comfortable. I think I can live with 3. 2, to me, it's a huge jump. I'm just not comfortable with that one.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations. Of course, we'll probably see you again when you come for the site. Okay.
Sounds great. Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
The next item, item number 5, is a public hearing. Amendment to City Land Use Code Titles 19.02 Definitions and 1918 Sign Regulations, City Initiated, and Brad is going to present that for us.
All right. My first time presenting to you tonight, so take it easy on me. I'll do my best. So we have some amendments to the sign code, specifically relating to vehicle and trailer signs. We're seeing a rash of trailer billboards, if you will. There's a good picture for you, good visual. We're seeing these around the city in various areas. We don't want these. So these amendments that I'm proposing, changing the definition of a trailer sign, making it so that if you use a trailer, it is not visible from a public right-of-way. That example obviously is. And changing the vehicle sign basically to the same definition, and then adding in a storage trailer definition. Some of the pushback that we've been getting is certain developers are saying it's not a sign, it's a storage trailer. We're keeping concrete blankets in them or windows or whatever. It's kind of he said, she said. We say it's one thing, they say it's another, so we're just trying to tighten that up. And as part of this also, we're adding in U in 1918-04 under prohibited signs, basically making it so that if they say it's a storage trailer, that it is not allowed to have any kind of markings or anything on it. So with that, any questions?
Okay, so this is a public hearing, so I'm going to go ahead and open this up for the public to make any comments. I'll close this for public comment, and then I will open this up to the commission, and Commissioner Burns rang in first, so you get to go.
Hey, so do you not have the ability now to just ticket them and say, yeah, this is against our code, and then allow them to go through like a rebuttal process with this?
So there is always that option to write a notice of violation to the trailer owner. We take them before our administrative court, and they can decide on the legalities of it and side with the defendant or the city as far as the city code goes. The way the code is currently written, though, it's kind of a gray area. And
Has that happened?
Not to that process,
Not
no,
with
but I
this
have tried
specific-
enforcing on these particular trailers, and the answer I've been receiving is, well, okay, they've got our name on the side of them, but we're storing windows, we're storing building materials in them, we're doing something. So you get the city says it's one thing, the developer, the owner of the trailer says it's something else, and the code right now kind of is in the middle. It allows both, or I mean, it doesn't allow the trailer signs, but storage trailers are okay. So it's kind of that, it can be both at the same time, it's neither. So we're just trying to clearly define what the city calls a storage trailer versus a sign.
And have you ticketed someone and had them go through that rebuttal process?
No.
Okay,
Code before doing that.
okay.
Yeah.
And then should this code pass and you ticket someone on it, do they still have that same option to go through the court rebuttal process?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that's all. Thank you.
Commissioner Kilgore.
Did you say that if a storage trailer is parked, it can't have anything on it? Did you say that?
So storage trailers, they're defined, means a trailer that's used for the storage of items at a fixed location for more than 72 hours. With that definition, it can't say anything on it, so no markings.
Okay. All right, so if like a construction company had its name on it and they were using it to store stuff, then it can't have that name
Well,
on
then
it?
it becomes a trailer sign,
Okay.
which we would not allow.
All right.
We will allow them, I'm sorry, let me back up. We will allow them, but not when they're visible from a public right-of-way.
Right.
So if they push them further into the development or wherever, put them behind a barn or a house or something where you can't see them, we would still allow them. The whole purpose here is to try and avoid that as much as possible.
And are there storage trailers that don't have anything painted on them? Is that a common thing?
I've seen it, yeah. I didn't get a picture of it, but if you drive down Riverside Drive into the Wander community, they actually do have one that's sitting out there right now.
Okay. So it's not like a huge burden that we're creating on.
No, and the trailers mainly that we're seeing right now, they're not painted. They're not affixed like permanently in some way, stickers or something that would be a burden for them to remove. They're banners. They're vinyl banners that are tacked up with screws or whatever to the sides of them. So in essence, they're using our own code against us to have billboards that advertise their development or their business or whatever it is. And that's what we're trying to avoid.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner McConkey, and then Commissioner Burns.
So I want to clarify a statement that you made, and you said that, you used the words, "we don't want them." I just want to clarify that the residents necessarily want those, so.
Well,
I don't know if you're a resident of Saratoga Springs, but.
I am.
So then it is a
Right.
we.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So-
I'm sorry.
It just,
So the-
it's nothing negative. I'm just basically adding my voice to yours to state that,
Yeah, so really what it is the sign code already prohibits them. This is just making it an absolute, there is no argument anymore by tightening it,
yeah.
that they can't claim one thing or the other.
So, a few questions I had. Public right-of-ways.
Yes?
So if we have a public road is a public right-of-way, right? So in a development that has a public road in it, then we're saying that it should not be visible from there.
Correct.
My question is that what our intent is? Is that we can't see it from any public street? Or are there some main arterial roads that we really would prefer not to see them from, such as Redwood Road, Pioneer Crossing?
Right.
Does that make?
The intent is, the way I've drafted it here, was any public road, but you're free to make amendments to my code.
I'm just asking the question to.
I mean, if you'd like to, I mean,
Sure.
I didn't think of it that way. I saw a road and,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because I look at, certainly, I don't know how many developments we have with public roads. How many residential developments do we have going on right now?
A lot of them,
With-
all of them, basically, except
No,
unless
there's
you're in
some
the SSD
private.
or something. Those are all private roads in the SSD development, but
Yeah,
everybody else has at least some mixture of either public or private.
okay. So to me, to just include all public right-of-ways, I take, for example, finished carpenter, or let's say a framer's trailer parked on a lot, on a public right-of-way, and it says awesome construction on the side. Technically, that would fall within the prohibited here, and it's storing there, or even a,
Well, no, actually, so the last part of the trailer sign definition there clearly says, unless the trailer is used for transporting materials in the normal day-to-day operation.
okay.
So if you have,
So some of the framers I know, they park their trailer there till the job's done. They
right,
just don't like hauling it back and forth to
Right.
Springville or Layton. Or
correct. I
like
mean, they
that.
have their tools, compressors, whatever
Yeah.
inside them, and they're short-term. This is more targeting the long-term.
Right.
The one
So if it
picture I
takes,
have here.
say, 3 weeks to finish to frame a house, and I'm just using framing as an
Right,
example.
right.
If it takes 3 weeks to frame a house and they leave their trailer parked there, then technically that would be in violation of what we're proposing, correct?
Not necessarily, at least as I view it from the enforcement side of things. I believe that the definitions would give some leeway or some, what is a reasonable time frame. Maybe if Fred has a different opinion of that, but I think the way it is, it's broad enough to give discretion to say, okay, you're here for 3 weeks, that's fine. Okay, you're here for 6 months, that's not okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think what it sounds like we're trying to achieve, I totally agree with. The temporary billboards that are on the side of
Right.
semi-trailers, I think clearly is a great approach to just send the message that that's not what we want here in the city, but also allowing for the others. I'm kind of testing, in my mind, I'm testing this ordinance to see if this is really, the letters that we're trying to it's going to achieve the intent that
Right.
we're looking at.
So the picture of this particular trailer, this is down off of Pony Express, almost into Eagle Mountain. That trailer has been sitting in that exact location for, I dare say, probably close to 2 years. So, and maybe even longer. So in a case like this one, it's very obvious and very clear, the intent for that trailer sitting there is to advertise. They're using it as a billboard. It's
Right.
not
Right.
a plumber using it to haul his day-to-day tools and equipment and stuff around. It's being used to advertise that business.
Fred, what are your thoughts about?
Yeah, so Brad's right. I mean, that's what this is aimed at, is when trailers are used for advertising purposes. I mean, it's not aimed at somebody storing equipment while they're working on a site or moving it back and forth. We also do have that process that was mentioned earlier. If someone got a citation, they would be able to go in front of our administrative law judge and talk about the situation and explain the situation, and that can be handled at that stage. The other thought I had is that they, sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there.
Which one do you want to look at?
Oh,
Any of them? No?
I guess my question is the way that it's written, let's say that you've got a contractor that parks
that
his
was the other
trailer
thought,
for.
was discretion. Brad has discretion.
Okay.
Our city code gives him discretion to determine whether or not to enforce.
Okay. That's good enough for me.
Thank you, Fred.
There's a couple technicalities. I think it was mentioned, I emailed Sarah earlier, the use of verbiage, the definition of vehicular signs. And then in item Q, in the next section, it says vehicle signs rather than vehicular signs.
Yes, and we can make, that's a easy change to make.
Yeah,
Do you have a preference, which one you would like to
What,
see?
just consistency. I'm all for consistency.
Okay. And
think
it's, I'd just like to point out that that's actually in the current code that way too, so. it was-
Well, it's in black, so I assumed as much, and
Yeah,
that's
it's kinda
kind of why I
funny.
brought it up. So.
Yeah, we can make that change.
And another question I had is, wondering if we can get some clarification on why section R states required parking instead of just saying parking stalls.
Sorry, I
So it
guess,
says trailer signs parked, and this is existing code, I know, but I'm just trying to understand. Parked outside of designated parking stalls or occupying required parking for more than 50% of the operating hours. So let's say if a business has more parking stalls than are required, does that mean that a trailer sign can park in an extra parking stall and not be in violation of the code? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
that's a good question. I didn't think of that. It's a good question. What do you think, Fred?
Maybe it's something to look
Sarah,
at.
yeah, that's something we can talk about, right, Sarah? Look at?
For sure, yeah.
I'll just throw that out there and then I'll be quiet.
So I do know that for a fact that the idea behind sections, vehicle and trailers, there are multiple delivery companies. There are several in the city that they will go out with their delivery truck that's branded, their trailer that's branded with their company logo or whatever, and they're doing the same thing. They'll park it
Yeah.
in front of their business and it's acting as a billboard. And
Right.
so those two sections are purposefully targeted about the parking stalls to keep that from happening. And there are several businesses that have tried that in the past that I've code enforced on to stop that, so.
And that's fine. I'm just,
Yeah.
I guess I see a loophole right there that
That's a good question, though. I didn't see that. We'll talk about it.
if we're going to do this, then let's do it, I guess. I don't know. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner McConkey. I'm going to go with Commissioner Ryan next because he hasn't had a turn, and then I'll go to Commissioner Burns and then Commissioner Kilgore. Commissioner Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think Commissioner McConkey had a really good example there, and that was one I was thinking of as well, like with the coming on site. The one thing I had a question of, just trying to think through loopholes, and I don't think I've thought it through all the way, but if you go back to that picture of the trailer, and let's say he moves it 10 feet to the left within 72 hours.
No.
Because we say it's a fixed location in what we're trying to prohibit.
So
How would I interpret that? Maybe Fred, if you have a thought on what a fixed location is in that regard. And if I move it 5 feet, 10 feet, whatever it may be, I'm all in on this as well. And we all understand what's happening. I'm just trying to think through another potential loophole, and it may not be, maybe we've thought about this. But
Yeah, we could probably take out the at a fixed location in the definition because it's in the other part of the code that says storage trailers are not allowed to just be there, you know.
Yeah, and I'm just, again, it's probably too much legalese and thinking of that, and I don't think anyone would be that vindictive to go and do that.
Yeah, they
But
would.
they've also been,
No, they would.
they've been
they-
sly, they've been sly enough to park it there for 2 years is what, I drive by that every single day.
Right.
Well, Monday through Friday.
That-
I drive by that, but, so, I'm all in, want to be able to fix it, I just don't want them to be, to say, oh, hey, because it sounds like you've been pushed a little bit in the interpretation and
Right.
enforcement to date, so.
Absolutely. And people try that kind of legalese or try and skirt the rules. There's the parking enforcement officer with the police department deals with that probably daily. I don't really deal with that, but I could see the same thing happening. Well, I moved it 5 feet, I moved it 10 feet. Well, I wonder if we maybe could change it to not say a fixed location, but a single lot.
On the same property.
Or even in like
property
area,
thing.
in area gives you
Same
that,
for certain-
gives you that discretion to
for-
say, hey, it's still in the same spot. Yeah.
And I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I'm fairly confident that if I was to write a citation for somebody that then does that, and it ends up in front of the administrative law judge, we all probably would understand. It'd probably still go in our favor, but I can't say that for sure.
Yeah. That's all I have. Appreciate the discussion.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner Burns.
That was all I had also.
Okay. Commissioner Kilgore.
The attorney mentioned that that there's discretion. So how do we ensure that discretion doesn't become favoritism?
We trust Brad to do a good job.
I'm assuming
Thanks
that
for the vote of
it
confidence.
is a position, not the person. And in the past, we've had that happen in the city.
We don't want that to happen.
Right, so how do we make sure that discretion?
It's the same way that anyone is, it's just
I
the
mean,
public
if it-
process and.
If it became a discrimination issue, they took it to the court and said, hey, they're just coming at me, and they can document that we're not coming at someone else, then that's why that's why I asked that question at the beginning, is there a way to check and balance this?
Good point. Okay, so that's how we ensure it.
Brad?
It wouldn't stop,
Again, it's not the person.
just letting you know, that it doesn't stop people from complaining at times.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and not particularly about our code enforcement, but I know that people complain about animal complaints too. And they say, hey, people have their dogs off leash all the time. You're not enforcing against them. Well, can't enforce against everyone all the time in every situation. And so it
one that was
just kind of happens.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And I do my best. The arbitrary and capricious thing, it's everybody plays by the same set of rules. The city code in my book, in my world, it doesn't matter if you're a huge developer with tons of projects or you're the single home builder. You all play by the same book. So if I see a violation, regardless of who you are or where you are, it's all the same. And if you get a violation today and the guy down the street gets caught tomorrow, I'm going to have the same conversation or go through the same process. Everybody's by the law, everybody's treated the same. Not necessarily at the same time, but everybody is treated the same.
Okay, thank you.
that because Brad did come to my house to write a ticket for me not too long ago.
I didn't write a ticket.
You were planning on it.
And it's not,
I wouldn't have done
not
that.
the person, it's the position, you know?
Right, yeah, exactly, yeah. And,
Russia.
you know, I really do understand that I follow the law and I follow the code, so. And if I stray from that, I don't just get myself in trouble, I get the city, I get Fred, I get everybody. So there's a very tight line that you have to walk, so.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Barton.
Everybody's addressed all my concerns, but I didn't really actually have that many. I just am glad that this is happening, to be honest with you. Like, I appreciate you, like, realizing that this was an issue and, you know, finding a solution for it. Because, yeah, that trailer, it's,
There's several, it's not.
yeah, it's not just that one. No. I've
That's
seen
the-
several, and I always wonder, how, is this right? You always wonder, how is this happening, right? But this makes sense that,
This is actually, if you want to look at it in a very broad sense, this is closing the loophole.
Yeah.
Is what we're trying to do. We're
and I
trying to
appreciate that.
close
That's,
that.
I think it was very much needed. You see, again, this isn't the only one that's out there. They're all
Yeah.
literally all over the place, and so, yeah.
And, you know, it doesn't come down to just aesthetics or that the city doesn't want to see them, you know, being used as billboards. I also see it as a safety concern myself.
Yeah.
I've seen them tipped
Depending where
over
it's
by the
parked
high
in, yeah, absolutely.
winds and all kinds of stuff. And besides that, nobody ever pays attention to them because you drive past it every day. Do you really pay any attention after the first couple of times you see?
Yeah, and now we will, yeah,
I mean,
There's
if you're,
there's a few.
yeah, there's a few of them out there. And
There's about 5.
And they're not nice looking. They're not.
They're not.
Brand new trailers that are
Right.
nice and shiny, that are well kept. They're the rundown ones that.
They're not using for
they
anything
don't
else
want to
and-
use them for
uh-huh,
anything else.
absolutely.
So they stick them someplace, they throw a sign on the side. And
So thank you. I appreciate that you bring this, yep.
Okay, well, Brad, I'm glad we are able to meet you. I'm able to see you in person because I talked with you a couple times on the phone. So I will go ahead and entertain a motion at this time.
Based upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move to forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the proposed amendments to Title 19, Chapters 19.02, and 19.18.04, with the findings and conditions in the staff report. Do we have any changes? we want
Yes,
to make?
on the were we striking the 72 hours or the location part?
I don't know if we're ready to do that, but I think the concern has been noted, and maybe we can talk about amending it before it goes to council. I don't know.
So if you would then consider that further, then, yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to write code on the spot, so if you could give in your motion to look at that further or something like that, that would be great.
Yeah, and, okay, then with the condition that the couple things or several things that we talked about are considered as well before bringing it to the city council.
We have a motion from Commissioner Kilgore. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Have a second from Commissioner Burns. Any question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
That passes unanimously.
No,
Thank you.
sorry.
You didn't beat me up too
I'm
bad,
sorry.
thank you.
Both, yes and no? You're undecided?
So excited to get out of here.
All right, so item number 6, public hearing amending the City of Saratoga Springs zoning map to apply the Gateway Overlay designation area. City initiated, and Ken Young will be presenting that for us tonight.
Okay, Commissioners, I will start out by saying that we have identified a legal concern with the noticing on this particular item, and it has been determined that we will need to renotice the public hearing. So it's my recommendation that we go ahead and open the public hearing and take comment by any that are here, also addressing one that has been sent to you today. It's in your Dropbox. If you haven't seen it, we can review that letter from Logan Johnson with the Wright Development Group. I will go ahead and review what the proposal is, and then we can, I would recommend opening the public hearing, and at that time, we continue it to our next meeting, which is scheduled for January the 12th. Okay. So I did list the purpose and intent as listed in the recently adopted code establishing the Gateway Overlay. We don't have to read the whole thing here, but generally it is just saying that we want to have a gateway or entrances to the community that are beautiful and well-designed and provide a good vision of entrance into the Saratoga community in shorter words than what's listed there. So that's the intent of what we're doing. We did mail out notices to all the property owners and those surrounding it according to zoning recommendation or zoning requirements for noticing a zone change. Even though we in planning have not considered this a zone change, it's not necessarily changing the zone. It is adding additional requirements to certain areas. So the underlying zoning remains the same. They just have additional requirements, but it is treated legally as a zone change because it will apply a designation on our map. Pointing out a couple things that before we move on to the areas and the properties that are being proposed to be affected, the ordinance that's moving forward to City Council ultimately does have the language in it that this amendment does not supersede any conflicting terms within any valid existing development agreement. So anything that's in place now, if this new code or gateway overlay being applied goes against that, then whatever was previously approved by development agreement will stand. Some concerns and some options are being listed and we'll show here in our maps upcoming. Tommy's Car Wash concept plan, which is just down the street here at the Steel Ridge Plaza, just next door to the pet kennel. I'm losing the word kennel. I wanted to say shelter, but I knew that wasn't right. We have another concept plan for Napa Auto Parts, which is down by the Thrive building off of Pioneer Crossing. We have this concern that's been addressed by the Wright Development Group, and we'll look at that. And then down on the southern borders of the community, a concern by Ambro and Son, or not necessarily a concern, but an option that we can look at for what's there. So I'll show those. So initially I want to mention that the mapping and addresses that were attached to our staff report did show up until today a map that included the entire parcel of what is now being known as Saratoga Heights, but that was a wrong representation of what we had intended to do. The map has been withdrawn at this time and being replaced by a line that goes right down the middle of that property on the west side of Redwood Road that covers the regional commercial zoning of that property and not the office warehouse. One of the uses that's prohibited in the Gateway area is flex warehouse uses. So we did not intend to create a problem there. So this would be our revised recommendation if we were to apply the Gateway overlay on properties on the North Redwood Road area. So I'm not going to talk about all the individual properties. If you have a question about the area, how we drew the lines or anything about that, we can do that. East Crossroads. So you'll see the blue boundary is what was proposed. The yellow circle shows the kennel location. And so we drew the boundary so it went as far west as it does because that's all one subdivision. But that doesn't mean that's where the boundaries of the overlay need to be. So if we were to change that so that we're not having a conflict for Tommy's Car Wash, although there's another issue that needs to be addressed there, and that's the distance requirement. So Tommy's has two things that we're proposing that could be conflicting. But as far as the Gateway overlay is concerned, we could do this, redraw the boundaries so it's just those properties that are across the street from, other than where Tommy's would be, the other Gateway locations. And so that would be a way to eliminate that conflict if we want to go that way. Then we're down off of both sides of Pioneer Crossing. It would be the west area. So we have Pioneer Crossing to Redwood Road, from the river to Redwood Road. And so we have quite a few properties included in that area, and it was by request of City Council that we include this area in the gateway. We were looking otherwise at Pioneer Crossing further east to where you first come into the community, but they felt like this also was a gateway, so they wanted to include this. However, showing the red circle for lot number 3 is the location for the Napa Auto, which they have submitted a concept that does not legally make them into the position of having vested rights. However, they have expressed concern to us that they have moved forward with their plans based on the previous or the current ability to have that use in this location. The possibility that we could do with that is you'll see that roadway that cuts through through east and west, actually with a north extension into the residential neighborhood, but that roadway could be the boundary of our gateway overlay, in that those particular properties on the north side of that street don't front on Pioneer Crossing and wouldn't have as much visibility. So we could... The Napa lot number 6. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. It is number 6. That circle was placed in the wrong spot. Sorry. Yeah, we'll fix that. But either way, those parcels on the north side of that street perhaps are not as important to include in the overlay area. So we can make that map adjustment. Then looking on the east end of Pioneer Crossing, or as you enter into the community first from the east coming westward, we have this first map includes the area and properties owned by the Wright Development Group, which on this map are shown as 12, 13, and 14. We did not include 13 because that parcel has recently, not shown in coloring here, but was recently rezoned to heavy commercial, which allows for the office flex. So we did not intentionally include that one. However, Wright Development Group is requesting that we alter our map to take that out based on some plans that they would like to do with a retail building that they are interested in having good ability, frontage, and parking. One of the things that the Gateway Overlay does is prohibits parking between the building and an arterial roadway in the Gateway area, so that you're just saying building and landscaping, and then it would require parking to be to the side or the rear. They don't feel that works well with their retail that they're planning, and so their request is to not include those. Looking at it, that is a little bit off the entryway there, if you will. If we redrew the line to be north of their properties, we're still capturing that area that is on both sides of Pioneer Crossing, so that wouldn't be of great concern. However, I would need to point out, and is mentioned in their letter, that lot number 1, which is that shown as lot number 9 on our map, they're fine with that being in the overlay. They had planned a convenience store there, and it may still be that, but they're not sure what that's going to end up, but they're not concerned about the gateway being there. Lot number 2, which is reflected on our map as 8, has already a site plan approved for a car wash. So that will be grandfathered in. But we figured it would be good to go ahead and include that in the gateway area if at some point it does have frontage or visibility along Pioneer Crossing, and there are those situations that will have grandfathered uses that we can't do anything about, but there's no reason not to include it, really. So we could do that. And then it's those other pieces below that. So that would actually be 8 and 10. So 8, 9, and 10 on our map, and 11, actually, it's a very small strip, is what we would propose to leave, and then to remove 12, 13, and 14. Actually, 12 and 14. On our current parcel maps, there's a strip of 13 that comes in between 12 and 14. It's going to be replatted so that it will just be 2 lots. But regardless of that, we draw that line at where 13 has its western boundary, as shown as Lot 4 on the right development group. Okay, then we're looking at West SR 73. We've got 4 parcels on the north side. So this is showing the proposed build out of SR 73 as a highway. So we didn't want to necessarily include properties that couldn't otherwise comply with gateway regulations based on the expansion of the roadway there. So that did affect some of the properties, but we're showing 1, 2, 3, and 4, just a small piece of number 4, actually just to show a line that makes sense parallel to the roadway. And then number 5 on the south side. Don't see any concerns right now or questions with creating the overlay as proposed there. Then on Pony Express, we have 2 areas, or 3, but on the east side there, as you go towards Eagle Mountain, you've got community commercial on the top, then you've got an area we're defining as 500 feet by 500 feet on the northwest corner of the SLR property. There's a possibility, they haven't defined their concept plans yet. They've given us some ideas of what they're going to do, but those can change. But there's a possibility that could go commercial. So we just want to make sure that we have that entryway on both sides at that location. But since we have funky boundaries north and south between Eagle Mountain along that roadway, we also have an entryway on the north side there with parcels number 1 and 2. So we would look at creating the gateway on those properties as well. Then on the south end of the community, we wanted to expand the area going further south so it covered all Pelican Point, which is a part of our annexation area. But since it's not currently annexed and we can't zone it, so we can't apply any zoning designation on that, we looked at these 2 properties. Number 1 is the Ivory Development Group. So this would be the lower 500 feet by 500 foot corner, or if you will, there's not a road going east and west at this time. However, that is an approximate location of where Mountain View Corridor will come into and possibly connect into a causeway over the lake. That actual alignment is not fully defined yet, so we're just waiting to see what will happen. Should that causeway not occur, then we're looking at possibly, rather than extending that area fully out to the lake, that at this time it might be a good option just to go 500 feet by 500 feet on the east side there and just have 2 squares rather than the full length, because we don't really know what's going to happen down the road. So anyway, that's the option that we can go with on those. Any questions as to the properties or what the intention is?
We need to open this up for public comment.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and do that. If you're here to make public comment, please keep it to 3 minutes. Make sure you state your name and address for the record.
My name is Albert Vucinic. I'm here representing AKV Investments, who has a parcel in the Gateway overlay, and also RPM Auto Parts, which is the proposed tenant for the building, which will be the Napa store. We're asking that you consider removing the auto parts store prohibition from the overlay. Our new Napa Auto Parts store would be just as aesthetically beautiful as any store in Saratoga Springs. We keep it well maintained. We've been in business for 52 years. We're a family business. We don't perform any automotive service. unless you ask us to put your wiper blades on, and then we'll do that. We don't generate any hazardous waste. We have no outside storage. In fact, the parcel that we're looking at, number 6, is a block north, well, maybe even more than a block north of Pioneer Crossing. So we're not overly prominent from the artery. The store would service Saratoga Springs, Eagle Mountain, Lehigh, and Riverton. We offer, I'm not sure why we were excluded, so I just want to let you know what we do. We offer unique services and products to a customer base that's not well served by other automotive retailers, such as construction fleets, rental fleets, government shops, landscapers, trucking companies, and of course, we have auto parts too. I would also mention the sizable investment that we've made in the property already, and the engineering, architectural expenses, and the planning application fee. It would be really hard for us to sell that piece of property with interest rates they are now. It would delay us terribly. Our retail areas are clean, well-lit, safe, and attractive with first-class graphic and display areas. A Napa Auto Parts store is not that old bright blue grease pit that you guys might have ran into sometime in the past. We're completely modern. The retail areas are beautiful. I brought pictures of a project that we did 3 years ago in Provo of the exterior and the interior of the building, if we're worried about appearance, if you would consider looking at them. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Yes.
There's two things we could do. We could either amend that boundary, or we could,
Let's wait till after we close.
oh, yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead, remember 3 minutes.
Yes, sir. My name's Edwin Greer. I'm a local franchisee for Tommy's Express Car Wash. I kind of spent, I have some stuff for you to look at to see kind of who we are and what we look at, since I think this is more of the, like, appearance, right? And so we're asking, obviously, that you just, I mean, frankly, let our work continue. I guess we kind of don't care how that happens, as long as we can continue to move forward, because as of now, I don't know if you guys have this letter as well or not that I wrote.
Well, I send it to our city council, I guess.
Okay, so I'll give this to you as well. It kind of outlays what we've done so far. Back in May, we called the city, we worked with the city, we told them that we were coming. We were told that a car wash was approved. Since then, in August, we started the process with getting it approved. I am a local franchisee, like I live 20 minutes north of here. I'll be running the site. It's not like a normal car wash that's owned by a California company or something like that, right? So I may not have known all the steps and processes to get this built. So I did submit my site plan today. We were doing a lot of our work that is typically done with the site plan in our conceptual, because unfortunately I didn't know the difference of the two. So like the grading, the look of the building and all that. As of today, we've spent over 1.7 million on this piece of property, purchasing it, legal fees, all that. We've spent another $5 million purchasing the building itself and the equipment inside to the franchise, because how the franchise works is, as a franchisee, I buy the building itself from Tommy's and I buy the equipment inside. So if you're worried about me felling, and hopefully it doesn't happen, but if you're worried about me felling, the building itself is actually copyrighted by Tommy's. It's part of a protected trademark or something that they have. So if I were to go under, I'm legally obligated to Tommy's to actually take that building down, because it's part of their design. It's part of their package, if that makes sense. So it's obviously, I really, really hope that doesn't happen. But if it does happen, if that's something you're worried about, an empty tunnel, single-use building in the future, at least with me, that won't be an issue. You know, so to me personally, I'm not a wealthy corporation. I was in the U.S. military, and I spent 5 years total in Afghanistan. I accumulated a little bit of money. I talked to 45 investors who were willing to invest in me to help me secure the loan and get the money to do this. If this didn't happen, if I'm being completely honest, I probably would go bankrupt because I've spent $5 million on a building and car wash equipment, a piece of land. And if I can't put all that together, obviously to get revenue, I don't have $5 million to pay off the loan. So it's pretty devastating to me. You could probably hear my voice cracking, but so I apologize for that. And plus, I've never done anything like this before. But
You've had 3 minutes. Go ahead and wrap up.
okay, sorry. If you're okay with it, I'll give you this. It kind of explains more as far the other meeting about environmental and all that. We well exceed all of that. So I will give this to you and happy to answer questions or anything, however it goes.
Or on what site
Thank you.
this was?
What site is his?
So it's actually,
Oh, it is number 4. You stop it.
Which one was the kennel?
Oh, so the kennel's right next to this. Okay, because I thought this was the kennel too. So I wasn't sure.
Go ahead, you can start.
Hi, my name's Devin Hatch. I'm one of the owners of the other parcels in the Still Ridge development there. And so I just wanted to stand and maybe suggest the earlier idea they had of that line changing and right there, that's correct, and eliminating that parcel there would solve the problem for the car wash, but as well as the other back pieces there, we're not quite sure exactly what we want to put on those back ones. So it would also kind of help me in the future. I don't know if I wanted to be held to those stipulations on the back lots. The front lots, we have a concept where we do some retail space that looks really good. It's going to actually mimic the River View development that's across from the Costco. And so it's a very good looking product, retail space there. But as far as those back lots, we're not exactly sure what we're planning on proposing to go back there. So if we change that line there, it eliminates those back lots, creating probably potential problems for us. So I would just suggest moving the line to that location. That's all I got.
Thank you.
My name's Steve Larson with Old Town Square. I represent the property number 5 right there. Sarah can attest, we've been through several different concept plans with this over the last 15, 20 years, and the proposed zoning continues to change. And I don't know that I have specific negative comments to this proposed overlay, but specifically what I've been working under, and I'm assuming that MF10 represents the medium density residential that we've been working under as the proposed future zoning designation. It appears as though this particular overlay is designated to address mainly commercial. And so I guess my question would be, I'm open to change plans, although I'm kind of tired of doing it over and over again, but I haven't acted on any, so that means I'm not too committed. But how does residential fit into this particular overlay? It wasn't clear in the mailer that I received, and just wondering exactly how that would work.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment at this time. And I think we'll have the city respond to, but I have one question for our attorney on procedure. In the past, when we've continued items, we've had the commission do a motion to continue the item, but then we haven't discussed the item. We usually save that for when we have the meeting. That's what we want to do, correct? That's procedure.
I think it's up to you. You can discuss it today, or you can wait and discuss it. You can discuss it today and discuss it next time. You can discuss it just next time. It's up to you. The public comment would still be open.
Yeah, and we do want to open public comment next time as well, because we're redoing our notice.
Renoticing, right? I understand that. Okay. Well, then after we answer the questions that were proposed, then I'll leave it up to the commission if they want to make comment or wait.
Okay, specifically to the question of how does this affect residential, it would, if we had, and we don't currently in any of our proposed areas have single-family properties that would be covered by this. Single-family is otherwise covered by state regulation that we cannot put additional requirements on them. So that wouldn't cover that. However, multifamily can be covered under the gateway. And it's correct to assume that this is largely for commercial designations. However, the landscaping and the parking provisions that we have in the Gateway Overlay Code, such as some increased landscaping and prohibiting parking between the building and the arterial road, those would apply to any development, multifamily development in this area. Okay, I'm done. I will go sit down.
I guess the next one was the Tommy's application. How one of the proposals was to move the line, but then they're still within 5,000 feet or something. How do we handle that one?
Right, well, that will be something the city council, I mean, with your recommendation, will determine if they want to go with the suggested 5,000-foot distance between auto or car wash facilities, or if they want to go with a lower amount, or if another way would be to hold up or put a continued or a future date for the ordinance, the gateway application of the zoning application. That ordinance could be continued or forwarded to a later date to actually become effective, giving Tommy's time to submit their site plan. That would be something, I suppose, we don't know exactly how much time they need, so I'm not sure if that's the best option, but then again, the intent of having a 5,000-foot distance between car washes is that we feel like we're already getting inundated and there's a lot of talk for others coming in, and we just wonder just how many does this community need, and should we have some distances between them so that we're not the car wash community of Utah. So, but that's a separate ordinance, a separate provision. We're talking right now about the gateway overlay.
Okay. The other one was removing the auto parts store from the overlay.
Yes. And I think that I did not show a map showing that redrawn boundary there, but we could easily do that. I would recommend if we did that to include lots number 2 through 7, just carving those out of that area. I don't think that would harm any of our intent with the gateway overlay.
Yeah, because they're behind, like, there's those ones in front and then they're behind,
Right.
correct?
Was there anything else we've missed? Storage? Did somebody mention storage? I don't remember storage.
I guess the other thing that we'll address ultimately is on the southern end, what do we think about including that entire stretch to the lake or just creating a 500-foot by 500-foot square on that east side?
I think it should go all the way across the lake to Provo. That's what I think. Okay, so I'll go ahead and open this up to the commission. Commissioner Ryan.
So I'm happy to have the meat of the discussion at next time, realizing we need to do that. But my question is just, Ken, right along those same lines, like we have, I guess what I'll say, like varying sizes and scope around some of these gateways. So I was just kind of wondering how we selected, like here at the southern end, if we were to juxtapose that to some of the other gateways, we're talking about going all the way down a really, adjacent line, I guess, versus like if I was looking at what it eventually will become, most likely that causeway coming in and then connecting up through Mountain View corridor. Do we need to be looking at more north-south type of corridors in that regard?
Right. Well, and I guess
or like what you're saying here, because we have that causeway coming all the way across, which will running east to west, do we need to,
Right.
you know, lengthen it this way? I guess I'm just trying to figure out. And then some of the other ones they're not necessarily disjointed. I think I realized the reasoning, but like to the Napa Auto Parts question, I don't know if I would necessarily view that if I was coming across Pioneer as like a major sight line, you know, back to that.
Right.
So some are a little wider, some are a little more narrow, and I was just kind of wondering how we.
Well, you know, there was no scientific calculation to determine this. We just kind of looked at the different situations occurring on the properties and what we can anticipate into the future. So like on this one, even though we don't know the exact alignment of the Mountain View corridor coming to the causeway, we know it's probably going to be somewhere in that area. And so say it was to be right along that southern boundary, then we would consider that entire area to be a gateway coming from the east into the community. And then from the south, we're talking about Redwood Road. And so it just seems to make sense to just continue that gateway entrance across that area. But Causeway could be way down the road. Maybe that's not something we're worried about right now. Maybe this whole entrance is not something that's going to be developed for quite some time. Yet we do know that when it does, at least that corner area of Redwood Road will be something we'll want to have in place. So why not do that now?
Yeah, no, so I actually kind of appreciate that forward thinking. I think that's why we're running into some of the challenges we're running into now with, right, with the gentleman with the car wash, for example, right, came in under
Right.
certain expectations. So
I don't know if there's other areas that, so a lot of times we just followed property boundaries.
and I figured that was probably the most common sense.
So, yeah, so if a development is going to develop that entire property, we want it to be cohesive. So that's why we would include the entire property. But then there are some instances where that didn't seem to make sense. Such these smaller pieces on the north side of SR 73 that are kind of funky in shape, and we just wanted to get a certain area that went back far enough so in case that area got included in one entire development, then we would be covered as far as distance there.
Yeah, and I think that kind of makes more sense in my mind, at least visually speaking, of these corridors and the overlays that we're talking about, particularly with some of the other properties and some of the requests that have come in as well, to where it's not necessarily the ones that are what I'd call like the front line, right, of the storefronts or what
Right.
may potentially go in there other than stores, and then the ones that are adjacent to or off, like the Napa store or the request we got here from the Work Right Development Group. I feel like those are more reasonable because it's not, at least in my mind, like just naturally thinking as I'm driving through, like I wouldn't view the next set of buildings as those things that are, we want them to look nice. I think that the owners want them to look nice as well, but maybe there's room that we can have more where it's, you know, working with the owners, maybe not necessarily the entirety of the property along those lines, which I think you seem to be amenable to around some of
Oh,
those.
yeah, as we get down the road and we have development proposals, and it may not make sense to include the entire property in it, and we can make that adjustment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Any other comments? Commissioner Kilgore?
So I really like the idea of a gateway overlay. Just, I think it's a great idea. But because, I'm not saying we're necessarily kind of late in doing it, but there are, you know, a lot of businesses that have already
Right.
have invested, or folks who've invested in that.
Better late than never.
And so wherever we can move the line, I think it's worth doing because they're here. The car wash one, I'm very sympathetic with what you know, the way, maybe it's the way he presented it. I'm also from, you know, I was in the service as well, and so I have a little bit of empathy there as well. I don't know if it's you know, which is more, again, favoritism, delaying the code for somebody. Because then what happens to everybody else who comes in later, or moving the boundary for somebody, because same sort of thing. But I think we should really consider one or the other, because again, he's already
Both of
spent
them
quite a
would
bit of
have to
time.
be dealt with. I mean, right now, we're just dealing with the gateway overlay, but if the distance goes through as 5,000, it doesn't matter what we do with the gateway, it would put Tommy out.
Yeah.
Tommy's out.
Yeah, and I just wish that we don't have to go that route. Again, because some people were here a lot longer or attempting to do things with the expectation in mind.
Right.
And the gateway it's a great idea, but it is aesthetics, and we have to deal with what's, you know, already there. And understanding that, okay, but going forward, we're going to be pretty, you know, we're going to follow the code.
Right.
But I think there's still a little bit of room without without compromise. Without compromise our ethics. I think it's just something that we should really take into account. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgore. Any other comments?
I just have a quick question. Just when it comes to expectation, when somebody does come in to buy, a piece of land for a certain thing and we change our code and stuff like that, I guess expectations is maybe not the right word. I don't know, like how do we handle that, right? Say that again? Yeah, how do you, can we grandfather them? Is that a choice we make, or is it by, are they automatically grandfathered just because they bought it before we made all these changes? How does that work, I guess?
Well, maybe we should let
Yeah,
our attorney answer that.
Those are specific legal questions that would require analysis.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, that's great. I just was wondering how that worked, so.
It just depends on the circumstances.
Okay.
Site plan.
Situation.
Okay.
But, as the more that people invest, the more they've, submitted, and Sarah can speak to this too, because she's an expert on it, but investment-backed expectations come into play and a lot of different things. And so vested rights is a complicated area of law, and that's what we're talking about here.
Okay, thanks.
You have anything to add, Sarah?
Well, obviously what Fred said is the case. Every case would have to be looked at. Generally, with our applications with a commercial site, vesting starts when the site plan application is submitted. But as Fred mentioned, I don't want to say that that's the case, right? They did submit a concept review and have that reviewed by city staff and proceeded forward with having addressing comments that were made. I spoke with the applicant earlier today, just because their letter said they're ready to submit their building permit pretty soon. Because they're new, this particular applicant isn't necessarily a developer. They're not super familiar with the process. They actually didn't realize that site plan was required. So once I explained that, they said, well, we have everything, we'll just get that turned in. So that came in today. So it's really something, as Fred mentioned, that would have to be evaluated further.
Thank you. That was my question. I didn't know when the investment started, right? Like when's that point where they could be grandfathered in because of? Yeah.
Typically, it's when a complete site plan application is submitted. We don't offer vesting with concept plans. Sometimes we can see a concept plan and then never hear from somebody.
Right.
So that's happened many times. That's not something that's uncommon. In this particular case, they were proceeding. So, yeah.
Just kind of, and like it's okay. Yep. Thanks. That's.
Okay, we'll have Commissioner Burns and then Commissioner McConkey. Did you want to make a comment? You had lit up. And
I was just going to say this is part of the process right here.
Okay. Commissioner Burns.
So as a commission, though, could we table this every time it's presented until we felt comfortable going forward with it? So just the conversation of tabling the overlay zoning until the site plan and the Tommy's stuff is all been submitted and qualifies for grandfathering? Is that an option?
I suppose that's an option, but what you're doing there is you're saying we're tabling all of the gateway overlay proposed areas for one business in one of those areas.
Yeah, so you could get more.
Yeah.
We're not making a decision. Sorry, we're not making it. This is all continued anyway, so I think we just move forward with the plan and then go from there, I think is the right approach.
Yeah, you're just going to make a motion, I think, tonight to continue it until the next planning commission meeting.
Which is
actually till January 12th. The next one's on the 8th, right? December 8th?
Next week.
Next week.
Oh, no, we are not having that meeting. We didn't have anything for that meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so it won't be until January.
You need to give us some notice.
Right, and then we have to read the notice, and so we're past that deadline, so we can't do it for that.
So
meeting.
our next meeting will be January.
Unless you'd like to hold a
Right.
special meeting on Christmas Eve, we could do that.
No.
So in this particular case, because we've received their application, we do have to verify that it's a complete application. Is assuming we have a complete application, then they came in before the gateway overlay gets applied. And then the council will be discussing the spacing on Tuesday. So, and they can decide how to proceed on, if they'll have different options they can consider. So it'll be up to the council on that topic.
So Ken, you'll take the feedback from the public as well, right, as the city staff, and you'll be like, okay, let's relook at this, and because I really appreciate the public comment, so and the letters were great. It just brings a whole new,
Yes.
way to look at things, so thank you.
We'll review that on January 12th.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, I believe I will entertain a motion to continue this item to January 12th.
Commissioner Ryan, I motion that we continue item number 6 until the next meeting of the commission happening on January 12th, 2023.
We have a motion from Commissioner Ryan. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Commissioner McConkey. Do we have a question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay. Thanks. Next item is a business item, approval of the 2023 regular meeting schedule. And our Assistant City Clerk is going to present that for us. Nicolette Fike.
I think this is the first time I've ever actually addressed Planning Commission in 9 years, I don't know. All right, so on our regular meeting schedule, we discussed changing some things. We had several months where there's like the same week as City Council. It does happen 3 or 4 times a year. But I think in the end, we decided to suggest to you that the only change be adding an additional meeting in November than we usually do that would help cover some of the items needed to get them onto the December council to avoid the scramble that we just had this week. So that was our only suggested change. So that would mean 2 meetings in November, but it would be the 5th Thursday instead of the normal 3rd Thursday. And so that is the difference that was finally decided, and we'll cancel and make special meetings as needed. Any questions on that?
Anybody have any questions? Yeah, we have to make a motion. We have to approve it. I'll entertain a motion.
Commissioner Ryan, I motion to approve the 2023 regular meeting schedule as been presented this evening.
We have a motion from Commissioner Ryan. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Commissioner McConkey. Do we have a question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That passes unanimously. Approval of minutes. Anybody have any changes they want to make to the minutes?
No, but I appreciate Nikki's email, Nicolette, sorry, with updates. Did we just get that today? I can't remember when we got it, but a few days ago or something, yeah. So thank you for that.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
I move to approve the minutes for the November 10th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting.
We have a motion from Commissioner Kilgore to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Commissioner McConkey. Any question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, reports of action. Do we have any reports of action this evening?
We do need to do reports of action for the 2 items, the 2 code amendments. Just because we're short on meetings in December, so we're putting this on City Council before the minutes are done. So these 2 items for code amendments will go to City Council on the 6th. So I do have reports of action for both of those.
Okay, so did you want to put them up on the,
Yeah, I can.
are you ready?
Where's yours?
What's the report for action?
So we don't have these very often, but what, she's going to put something up on the screen here. It's kind of like a mini minutes is what it is.
It's condensed minutes, so we're saying, it was a positive recommendation. So this is,
Can you make it bigger still? I did get new glasses, but you need to make it bigger.
It
looks familiar.
Definitions, sign regulations, amendments, and then that got a positive recommendation. So what I wrote here, so staff presentation says see staff report, there was no public comment raised, and then there was no applicant presentation because it's a city initiative code amendment. And then these are the key points that I have. Does this allow a small business construction trailer to be parked at a job site for 3 weeks while they complete the job? Comments on other items in the code, why does R require, say, required parking rather than parking stalls, vehicle versus vehicular, vernacular? What if they move the trailer every 72 hours? Is that a loophole? Should we say something like fixed location? How do we ensure discretion become favoritism and then process? So those are the key suggestions. And then the motion made by Commissioner Kilgore with the findings and conditions report. And then we had a second by Commissioner Sprosty Burns. And then
So do we take a vote on this? How does that work with the reports to action?
the board has to sign.
Oh, okay.
Just make sure that if you had comments
Anything
quoted in there.
anything like
Right.
that, or, okay.
Does that sound okay to you guys?
We're not adding anything to it if we had an afterthought, is that correct?
Right. This is just what happened during the discussion. Correct.
That looks great.
These don't happen very often, but once in a while.
It's up here in case you want us to. So if everything looks good, we'll print it out and sign.
So why do we do this? I don't understand what this is.
Because we won't have time to approve the minutes from this meeting before the
City
city
council
council
sees it, right?
meeting in which they want to
Wanna vote on this?
consider these and vote on them. And so that's the purpose of this, is just so that they can have a report of what you did tonight
Okay.
for their meeting. By a
Okay.
motion. Yeah, and a vote.
All right, so then we need a motion to approve this. Oh, okay.
Well, we got to go over the other one.
Okay, the other one.
So this is the one on the parking, right? It was the first item.
I think there's going to be a 2-hour delay for schools for tomorrow, too. The snow, yeah, they just sent the
Yeah, message
notice
about-
out.
Well, that's good enough for me to work from home.
What about a 2-hour delay for work?
Yeah, right?
I am approving a work from home for me tomorrow.
Yeah.
And get Domino's pizza for me and my son, who will be home with me.
The staff presentation, we say see staff report. No concerns were raised by the public. The applicant presentation, the need for parking for commercial kennels is similar to a daycare. Customers drop off and pick up at similar times and durations. And then planning commission discussion. So key points, will there be adequate parking for a subsequent change of use? And we discussed financial institutions are the only other use that require the 2 per thousand. And most likely other uses would need to demolish or, and erect a new building. What is the history of why did the city establish 4 per thousand for the minimum parking? That's just the most common standard. No particular reason for kennels to have the 4. Why does the applicant want 2 stalls per thousand? And then they responded to that's what will work best for their site and their parking. The projected size of the building is large and would allow for dogs and movements. Can 3 stalls per 1,000 work as a compromise? 3 stalls would not work for the applicant. Can a variance be used? This request wouldn't qualify. Can landscaping be modified to parking? Probably not unless the landscaping requirements were also altered. Opinion expressed that a commercial kennel is not compatible use in the regional zone, even though, let me take that out, even though it's a current permitted use. Question if a commercial kennel is appropriate in the gateway overlay. Can the developer seek more parking through cross-access agreements? The developer has already looked at that option. We could add that and it's not enough.
It doesn't meet requirements.
Yeah, and
5%.
Yeah.
we can say that. And then maybe it's time for the city to revision parking requirements, revise. Do not feel in making this change, the floodgates will be open. And then Commissioner Barton made the motion and no conditions were mentioned. And then Commissioner Ryan seconded the motion. And then there was a 5-1 to approve the motion.
So Commissioner McConkey, your comment, does that match what you wanted to convey to the council?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's just, I'm just not feeling comfortable. Yeah, that's fine.
As long as that conveys it.
That's, yeah. Okay. Well enough. I couldn't put it in better words.
It's complicated.
It's complicated.
Thank you. That's exactly it.
Roller coaster of emotion.
Okay.
It's a commercial kennel.
Okay, so we need to approve this, that these are good, right? I'm going to motion to approve it. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the reports of action.
I'll make a motion that these are good.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Burns. Do we have a second?
I'll second it, that they are good.
Second from Commissioner Barton.
That is what you said.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
We have a question on the motion.
It's good.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. All right, that reports of action, Pat. I'll make sure I stay to sign them, or they're not official.
Okay, and yes, I will print these and then we'll have them signed.
Commissioner comments. Do we have any comments this evening?
Yeah, things we do for businesses that are coming in.
Right.
I just want to say thanks for the nice gift. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank
Happy
you.
holidays.
Perfect.
You guys are awesome.
I knew this was the telltale sign you didn't want to see us again when I walked in and saw this sign.
Then you knew the next week's
See you
meeting was
next
canceled.
year.
Yeah.
And then for the training sheets, do you want us just to email those to you for our yearly,
Just email them to Sarah.
to Sarah?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, I do have a couple of
Great question,
director
thanks.
items.
Oh, yeah, she was going to talk about that in her
Oh,
director's.
Just two, that one, I'll send out an email tomorrow with that form with, you list out the training that you've done throughout the year. I think it's 4 hours of required training. 12 meetings counts towards 1 hour. And then the Opens Meeting Act training that Fred presented counts. And so then you need 2 other hours.
That's
listed.
not right. The
it
open
doesn't?
meetings doesn't count for land use training.
Oh,
Well,
Oh, it doesn't?
why did we do it, Fred?
We have to do
It's
it anyways.
also required by code. So
Oh.
it's a separate code
Need
requirement.
3 hours plus the,
I can put another thing down there because
Okay.
I didn't list all the
I
The hours I
just
spent.
assumed it counted.
Yeah, sorry, it's,
Okay.
but you have, one of the hours has
That
to
one
be.
doesn't count. Thanks for participating.
Yeah. One of them has to be in general powers, and there's a link to that at the luau. So it's funny that it's called that, but it's the Land Use Association something. But
Oh, thanks.
the general powers and duties.
was that one on the training sheet itself, the link to it?
Uh-huh, the link is on there. That one is required. Then 12 meetings counts as 1 hour. And then, so just 2 more hours is all you need.
If we went to that seminar at Thanksgiving Point, does the whole thing count as all the hours?
I
Or
listed
is it
some of
just
the
one-
classes.
Just list each class as 1 hour. And so each presentation, so if you went to that, I think you're more than good as long as you've done the fundamental, general principles and powers.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
So we need to email it back to you, Sarah, then?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, you already put it in the Dropbox? Okay.
The blank form, yeah.
Okay, so then I don't need to email it. It's in your Dropbox. Unless you want me to email.
A gentle reminder might help, though.
But you were gonna put how many hours we had. Is that included already in the Dropbox?
Oh, well, I don't know how many hours you have. You would have to fill that out.
I think I have all of my hours. I think when I first came on, I did all of my hours then.
Okay.
Yeah, hers was turned in at the first of the year, so that should count, right?
Oh, when they audit you, just make sure you provide.
If you have questions, let me know. I'm kind of learning as well. So I'm kind of learning, obviously, what you need.
You can ask me too if you have any questions.
Oh, great.
Hey, Nikki, where are you going to put it in Dropbox? Which?
Not in the packet folder, it's one folder up,
Okay.
just in the planning commissioner folder.
Thanks.
If you need me to send it, let me know. But yeah, if you can email that to me just in the next couple of weeks, that'd be great. We just have to keep it on file, on record that you've gotten your yearly training.
And I don't know if it's still my turn, Mr. Chair, or not, but I had one more quick question.
Yes.
And I may admit, because I apologize for missing the November 10th meeting to work. I tried my best to do it again today. Are we going to get a new commissioner anytime soon?
Yes, that was another announcement. So.
I'm stealing all your thunder. I'm going to stop.
Okay, so
I didn't know if I.
we've moved on from commission comments to director's report.
Are you guys, sorry, I think we're going out, I think these reports of action threw us off because we don't usually. So we have interviewed a gentleman named Doug Wilden, and we extended the offer to him. He'll be appointed on December 6th by the city council, so he'll start at the first meeting in January.
Great. Fantastic.
And he has experience in another state on a smaller town, but he has commission experience, so that's nice.
Yeah, that's great.
In the southern or the northern part of the city?
I don't know.
He's in the southern.
Okay. I wasn't sure. He's recently moved here.
So, and he knows he needs to watch the land use training stuff before.
I don't think he
right?
has recently moved here. Doug Wilden? No, he's been here. He's been here a long time. He lives down by me.
Oh, sorry. I don't know why I thought he was recent. Okay.
Yes.
And he knows he needs to do the land use training first, right?
He will know.
Okay.
Is it Steve Wilden's brother?
Yes.
Okay.
Another brother.
Is that allowed?
We looked into it and there's no concern.
Yeah, we had to do some.
Nepotism.
Councilman Wilden will have to recuse himself from the appointment, basically, and not supervise. That's all.
Okay. Anything else from the director's report?
I'm still kind of thrown off by the dates and the extra meetings. So November 15th was the last city council meeting, and they approved changes to our noise ordinance. They saw the Riverwalk rezone, which you actually saw in March, so it's just been quite some time before they were ready to come to council, and that got tabled for them to work on their development agreement. And then they saw the changes to the Viviano major amendment to the road cross sections, and that got approved. And then they saw, so we also brought, this went just to the council, it will come to you later. So our mixed waterfront zone, we're looking at making some changes, and we took pending ordinance council so they could enact that, and then we'll continue to work on that, and then that will come to the planning commission and then the council. What the pending ordinance does is just put some regulations in place while we continue to work it out.
Okay. I was just thinking the 5,000 foot, that was part of the regulations we had for car washes, right? I guess that's something the city council will have to take into consideration for the Tommy's car wash.
Yeah, that's what Ken was saying about it, right?
Yeah, I'm just kind,
Yes, and the letter that you got tonight and the concept plan, I forwarded all of that to the city council, so they're aware of the concern with that.
Isn't like alcoholic, what is it? Places that sell alcohol, it's 300 feet from, is it 300 feet? So I think car washes are.
From a community location, or do you mean from each other?
No, from a community location, like a residential.
That's statutory, that's state law, and they have a minimum distance.
So we're saying car washes have to be 5,000 feet while alcohol can be 300
From
feet?
each other.
From each other.
From each other.
So we do have, when we're concerned that we're getting a proliferation, we do see, it is common to put a spacing. So one of, a similar topic would be storage units.
we
We have
did
a
put one
space
on that as
limit
well.
on storage units.
I have no
But we
sympathy for them.
Don't get a proliferation. And so that's the goal behind imposing this on car washes.
We should do that with tire stores. We have so many tire stores.
Yeah.
Car parts, yeah.
I know, I was,
Agree with that.
another car parts store, I'm like,
Yeah, well, and then on top of the fact that, you know, the big box stores sell tires as well.
And all that kind of stuff as well. Yep.
Anyway.
Hey, as long as people buy them in Saratoga Springs and not somewhere else.
is that all you had?
Yeah, I'm done. I hope I didn't cut anyone off or throw any, I hope you were done with your comments.
Do we need to go into a closed session?
We do not.
So I will adjourn this meeting until January 12th.
Ooh, happy